Is your meal plan working for you, dancers, or is it totally hindering your performance potential? Today, we're chatting about 5 key red flags regarding your meal plan, how to identify the signs, and most importantly, how to navigate through them to build your most supportive mealtime habits.
I'm Rachel Fine, registered dietitian nutritionist and founder of To The Point Nutrition. A dancer's performance is a direct result of hard work and motivation. So where does food fit into this? There's a lot of myths and a ton of antiquated ideals, and I'm here to dispel those.
Hi, I'm Rachel Fine. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist here to support dancers in building not just healthy relationships with their plates and their bodies, but to also learn how to utilize food as a tool to support performance, not in a way that feels obsessive, but rather in a way that feels sustainable. Today, we are chatting about your current eating routine, some of which you might call a meal plan, how to identify whether or not your habits are actually working for you and not against you, and then most importantly, how to navigate through any hindrances that might be preventing you from truly reaching your performance potential. Since working with dancers for over a decade, I've noticed a recurring theme, which is whether it's about how much to eat, when to eat, or what types of food to eat, dancers really do struggle in knowing how to best fuel their bodies. One reason for this is the high frequency of food and nutrition misinformation that unfortunately saturates our studios and our social feeds. So many dancers strive for, and I quote, perfection around not just their training, but also their food choices. And what this usually leads to are a lot of unrealistic expectations, like attempting to abide by very stringent eating patterns, lifestyles, and habits like calorie counting. Dancers become consumed with needing to compensate for experiences like, and I quote, overeating, mindless eating, and even emotional eating. But there are specific signs that you can look out for when it comes to your current eating routine. And once identified, you'll be better equipped to build a routine and a meal plan that truly supports your dancing. First red flag is you are constantly feeling drained on non-dance days. So let me say that again, the days that you are not dancing and essentially not partaking in extensive or strenuous movement patterns, but you're still feeling overly drained and fatigued. First things first, I want to commend you because you're taking time away from the studio. This is often a challenge for dancers in of itself. But time away from the studio, whether it's a day, 2 days, a week, more than a week, a month, however long it might be for you, is oftentimes the best tool that a dancers can utilize for progress, especially when they're teetering around burnout. But your body needs this time to recuperate and recover. And feeling tired is essentially normal on these days because your body is making up for those strenuous times when you're dancing. But if you're noticing patterns of feeling overwhelmingly drained on these off days to the point where you might not even be able to get out of bed or off the sofa to venture out, experience some fun times with friends, make new experiences, dine out, whatever it might be, then you may want to look back at your eating patterns during the days when you're dancing. And here's the major pitfall. Busy days make it super easy for dancers to unintentionally underfuel their bodies. So, as per usual, on those non-dance days, your body's playing catch up. But if it's super depleted, it's gonna have to catch up even more. Here's a solution. Despite misconceptions surrounding the need to, and I quote, eat less when moving less, you first want to recognize that it is incredibly normal to experience a spike in your appetite on rest days. Again, your body is playing catch up. You'll always want to honor this, especially with supported meals and snacks that are planned regularly throughout your rest day. But to take things further, I want you to examine your meal plan on your dance days and still strive for those consistent and regular meals and snacks. For those of you who have a hard time getting full meals in, whether that be during an afternoon of dance or during an evening of dance, consider splitting those meals into smaller meals or bigger snacks, however you want to think about it. Most importantly though, you are providing your body with that refuel every 2 to 4 hours as a general range to go by. If time constraints are making this super challenging, then relying on packable, convenient snacks like bars, trail mix, crackers and cheese, granola, whatever it might be, will be essential for you to keep alongside in your dance bag, especially when you're on the go. So just to recap, we're not only planning to honor that increased appetite on our rest days, but we're also re-examining our meal plan on our busiest of dance days and making room for packable, convenient options so that we can continue to refuel our body every few hours. Meal plan red flag number 2 is that you are always feeling hungry. Now, not all dancers can relate to this because for many, hunger cues do go diminished when we are super busy and super active. But there's also a subset of dancers who might very much experience a chronic, low-lying feeling of hunger or just the inability to feel satisfied throughout their day. Chronic hunger isn't just a result of not eating enough, it's also a result of imbalance in your current meals and snacks, particularly surrounding the macronutrient fat, which is known to help promote satiety at mealtimes. In addition to fat is fiber and protein. Both of these components of a balanced meal or snack will help you to feel satisfied throughout your day. So what's the pitfall? You're constantly hungry, or you're experiencing a lack of satisfaction even after eating a meal or a snack. You might experience patterns of wanting to mindlessly eat or even nosh or graze throughout your day. Meal plan resolution: start by increasing the staying power of your current meals. Staying power refers to the degree at which your meals and snacks are keeping you to feel full and satisfied. And the best way to increase the staying power of your current meals and snacks is to make sure they're balanced and they include those specific components like foods rich in fat, foods rich in protein, and even foods rich in fiber. The next sign that we are looking for is you are feeling overly concerned about your food choices. Now, this one often takes dancers by surprise because so much of what I do as a dietitian for dancers is helping dancers to recognize the importance of nutrition and the role it plays on their dancing. But when we see this information taken out of context, taken to the extreme, such as, and I quote, clean eating lifestyles, the focus on food and nutrition becomes less supportive and more of a gateway into the world of disordered eating. And unfortunately, this is exacerbated in the dance world because patterns of disordered eating, just a few examples, calorie counting, macro counting, and the avoidance of certain foods or food groups like bread or dessert is not only normalized in dance culture, but it's even glorified amongst dancers. So what's the meal plan pitfall? You are obsessing over needing to choose, and I quote, the right foods or avoid, and I quote, the wrong foods throughout the day. This is leaving you feeling overwhelmed about your current mealtime habits and ultimately risking not just mental burnout, but physical injury. So how can we resolve it? Remember, each day you have multiple eating opportunities to take advantage of nourishing options that will support your dancing. Focusing on getting in nutrient-dense options shouldn't have to take up 100% of your mindset. When compared to individual food choices, patterns over time matter. And for the most part, throughout your weeks, throughout your year, if you're generally getting in an abundance and variety of nourishing options, then you need not ever have to worry about those meal instances that might be deemed a bit less nourishing. The bottom line, stop obsessing over your food choices. And if this is easier said than done for you, this is also the point where working with a licensed dietitian with advanced certifications in intuitive eating and working with disordered eating is extremely encouraged. My program, The Healthy Dancer, does exactly this with dancers. It uncovers the importance of nutrition information, but in a way that does not lead to these obsessive patterns at our meal times. You also want to think about practicing inclusion, not exclusion, when it comes to your food choices. The Healthy Dancer food flexibility algorithm is a very specific set of prompts that I've created especially for dancers during those mealtime decisions. We've discussed the food flexibility algorithm previously, but you can go over to dancenutrition.com and I can walk you through it again. It's super helpful, especially when it comes to those day-to-day choices. In other words, we're only approaching nutrition once we've got a few other considerations taken into account, such as our food preferences, foods that are accessible to us, what our intent is behind this specific meal or snack. All of these considerations matter when it comes to choosing the best foods that are going to work for you. Another red flag, you're setting unrealistic expectations at mealtimes. So many dancers will hear the phrase meal planning and immediately channel those Pinterest-worthy meal plans and refrigerators that look perfectly poised in their fresh cut veggies and fruits and grains, all prepped to basically what seems like perfection. But this expectation can lead dancers into that all or nothing mindset, especially around otherwise helpful tools like meal planning. The result, we end up feeling stressed out and overwhelmed. I know this from personal experience. If I take meal planning to the extreme, I end up finding no time to do it and therefore feel super guilty about not being able to do it at all. So how can we resolve this? We start smaller. Simple meal planning prep doesn't have to be confusing, nor does it have to ever be, and I quote, perfect. Start with just a simple 5 to 10 minutes at the start of your week to consider options that you can potentially prep ahead of time. For me, it's purchasing frozen produce. So instead of having to stress about prepping all of this fresh produce that's likely to go bad by the end of the week, what I prioritize are frozen options. They're just as nutritious and in the long run, more economically friendly because you're dealing with less food waste. And you can add frozen produce to basically any meal during the week. Another way to meal prep, think about those packable and convenience options. Perhaps pre-portion some baggies of hummus and crackers for your week. Maybe separate generous handfuls of trail mix or granola, which can be paired alongside yogurts, cheese, bars, whatever you might need to support you during your busy dance days. Super important to understand, relying on convenience does not mean that you are lazy dancers. It simply helps to reduce the barriers to cooking and prepping. And the final meal plan pitfall that I see almost all dancers attempt, especially before working with a dietitian, is attempting a one-size-fits-all approach. This is especially common when dancers are seeking full support from those who lack appropriate nutrition credentials for providing food and nutrition education. Similar to how every dancer's body is unique, every dancer's food and nutritional needs are also unique. So if you are accessing meal plans or even meal plan advice from anyone who's not licensed to give it, you might be risking a generalized approach that's not actually going to support you. This is super common, especially when we see dancers striving for target calorie goals that more often than not severely underestimate their needs. So what can you do to resolve it? First things first, consult with a licensed practitioner. A registered dietitian nutritionist or a licensed dietitian nutritionist is always the way to go. In my work with dancers, we sit together to formulate plans that work for individualized schedules, bodies, performance goals, and so forth. So much has to be taken into account, like accessibility, what foods you have accessible to you, Also, genetics, past medical history, past nutritional history, current mealtime habits, cross-training routines, and most of all, your current relationship status with your food choices. We factor all of this in our work together. And if you need more support, then simply reach out because I am always here to give it. I hope you've walked away with being able to identify some of these meal plan pitfalls that many dancers fall into, and better yet, how to navigate through them, which for some might need a bit more support beyond just this discussion. Feel free to reach out with any additional questions, and until next time, we'll talk soon.